Fresh and
All right, welcome back to another episode of Fresh and Buds. I'm your host, Tommy Fresh, and you are all of my buds. I hope everybody's doing well today or whenever you're listening to this. We got a great show for you this week. We are joined by Sin from Sin on Stream, and we're going to have a lot of fun. Sin makes great Flesh and Blood content, and he's got a great energy. He's from Pittsburgh, so beware the accent. It is very fun. And we have a great show. We're going to talk a little bit about Vynnset because we're all getting pretty hyped for Dusk Till Dawn. We just saw what Vynnset does over the weekend. We might touch a little bit on Prism, but there's still a lot of up in the air stuff about Prism's ability, so it might not be worth it. But we have a nice existing card pool of Shadow Runeblade stuff that we can kind of make some guesses as to how Vynnset's going to play. And it's going to be fun. Vynnset seems awesome. So we're going to get to that. But before we do, I do want to shout out the Patreon, which is a great way to help keep the mics hot, the lights on. Supports the channel, the Fresh Mafia. It is a great way to keep everything humming and dinging over here at Fresh and Buds. And you get some nice little rewards too. So check that out. It's in the show notes, in the link tree. Also in the link tree is the Buds Discord, which is a great community to hang out, talk about Flesh and Blood or whatever in a very safe space for all of that. You know, it helps get some updates on everything going on with the channel as well. But also, YouTube is a great way to support the show by just subscribing. So if you're watching right now, give us the old like, comment, subscribe, helps the algorithm, whatever. And then if you're listening, throw a subscribe over there. It helps us get to the point where I can do the full adult Levi cosplay, which we're getting very close. And I am terrified. On top of putting this show on there, we also have the live podcast, Bud Rush Bellow, on Wednesdays at 9:30 Eastern. Mostly every Wednesday, unless we have to take a week off, but that's all right. And it's a great way to, kind of interact with us live, which is a lot of fun. I do that with Gary, aka Mr. Viz, the weird pillow guy. Also, we have a nice little segment from Charmer, aka Derek Oswald, at the end of the show. We didn't get to it last week, but we're going to get to it this week, hopefully, and it'll be nice to actually hear from him. So stick around to the end when he pops in. And finally, Greg, our producer. Shout out to Greg. Doing great. And without further ado, it's time for Sin. All right, we are joined by Sin, aka Matt, but I like to call you Sin, Sincenzo. Whatever you want to call him. He is the aggro Yinzer. He is here. How you doing, buddy?
Bro, I'm so happy to be back on the show. Honestly, we've seen each other off and on at major events over the past 3 or 4 months. And it feels like every time you and I link up together, it's party city. And It really is, dude. It really is. We get crazy together. So I always said you're like my evil other half from the other side of the state.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I'm definitely evil, and it is Party City. It's probably more like Spirit of Halloween or whatever, because it just pops up out of nowhere, and all of a sudden we're jamming. But yeah, man, we got a great show for everybody. I mentioned it at the top of the show, but we're gonna talk about Vynnset and all that. But we're gonna, I want to catch up with you first a little bit. See how my boy's doing. And then we're going to hop into some Runeblade talk. I don't do a lot of that unless Gary's around. But, I'm cheating on Gary today with you. We're going to talk about some Runeblade stuff. So, first of all, what's new with you? What's new in the life of the aggro Yinzer?
Oh, man. It's been a couple fun months. For anybody that knows me, follows me on Twitter, I've recently been going through some pretty intense life changes, but everything's going good there. Everything's fine in that regard. And other than that, I've just been kind of putting my head into the books, so to speak. Try to settle up and prepare for Dusk Till Dawn. Doing some backseat collecting, doing some backseat inventory, making sure I've got everything I could possibly need. So the day Vynnset hits shelves, I'm able to just say, I want this card, this card, this card, this card, and smash it into a deck and be done with it. So I've been kind of going back and grabbing some of the cards that maybe I let go a little bit too soon when Chain Living Legended out of the format, and kind of going from there. I've been brainstorming a little bit with the GSC team, a little bit of top secret stuff. I won't be giving away too much of what we're talking about, but you know, we saw Vynnset obviously this weekend, what she does. We know what the Rune Gate mechanic does now. So I feel like we can at least start looking at some past cards, of course, and making some determinations. But a lot of the bulk of what I've been doing and how I've been doing is essentially just that. And, you know, going to local armories, supporting our local community, always doing that, always talking about what the next big event is that we're all able to get out to and party at, or whether we're hosting a larger event here in Pittsburgh. You know, like yesterday, for instance, I did a learn to play. If for those that follow me on Twitter, if you at Sin on Stream, shameless plug, all that fun stuff. If you go check that out, I did a learn to play at a local game store that opened up about 2 weeks ago with some of the GSC folks in my hometown, actually. The shop's called the Feisty Goblin. Gonna shout them out because they're, you know, it's a husband-wife duo, open up game store. They are awesome, great folks. And they welcomed us in to do a learn to play. They signed up with Gem, did the whole thing. And we ended up bringing in 13 new players to the game yesterday. Just based off like putting out Facebook posts to the local community. It's really promising, really looks like their community's like really yearning for a game to sink their teeth into. And I hope they make the best of it, and I hope the community keeps growing up that way. It's about 40 minutes for me north, so it's a little bit closer up north in PA, but yeah, you know, I was very happy to be able to go out there yesterday and do that for them. But other than that, I mean, I know it sounds like a lot, but that's what I've been up to. I'm a very busy, very busy guy, but I like to really downplay just how busy I actually get.
Well, we know. I mean, you're the aggro user for multiple reasons. It's not just that you like to play aggro decks. You are aggro all day. You're just going. So that sounds awesome. Now, you've mentioned GSC a couple times. I do want to clarify for the listener. That's Green Tree Sports Cards. They put on great events. They hosted the Pittsburgh Brawl, which was a lot of fun. I was at. We're going to talk a little bit about that in a second. Learn to play. So, what's a good way to approach learn to play events?
So thankfully, like LSS makes it very easy for stores to host learn to play events. More so, they call them like welcome deck events. You know, they have those Ira Blitz decks, but they're not really Blitz decks. They're actually like 32 card, kind of just a pre-constructed deck that, you know, players can essentially learn the core mechanics of the game outside of like arcane damage and some little minute things. Really helps them just kind of get a grasp on the game immediately. It comes with like a little rule book and stuff like that. You know, there's always some other explanations that need to happen whenever you're hosting an event like that. So it's always good to have people like present that know how to play the game and kind of go from there. But basically you just kind of, you know, LSS supplies everything you need for it, and you just host the welcome deck event. It's an open play event. Everybody gets 1 XP. There's not really a tournament structure to it, so to speak, but all the new players, they get a free Ira welcome deck. They get to just chill out, play against each other, kind of get a hang for the flow of the game. And then you kind of just stand by and answer questions when people have them about things. You know, the way we kind of structured it was everybody got their decks. I told everybody, hey, open up your decks, showed them specific cards, card types, all that kind of thing. Played like a mock game. Like we had 3 of our guys kind of break everybody off into groups. And we all did like a mock game to show everybody how the flow of the game works. And from that point on, we were kind of just like, you know, we got like 2 or 3 hours left. Feel free to, you know, just run up some games with everybody, and if you got questions, ask. And I think it was pretty successful. A lot of the players, they seem to really enjoy the flow of the game. Every time I feel like I was turning my head and somebody was walking up to the counter to buy a booster box. Like,
oh wow, that's
it
awesome.
it was at that point where I was like, okay, I think these folks are in. I think there's going to be a good community up here. Like, they're supporting the store. You know, you hear free events. Sometimes people just come, they check it out, and they walk out, and that's fine. But like, you know, folks getting up and, you know, going up and buying, you know, product right off the shelves in their new store. It's good to see that support. And I think they were very relieved that, you know, folks were that interested to start just buying stuff immediately.
Yeah, and that's awesome,
So,
especially out of the gates for a new store, right? Like you
right.
kind of want that because it could be easy to get frustrated maybe if like inventories, you know, hanging around. I mean, I deal with it in my day-to-day job. You know, I sell beer, and like if a six-pack doesn't move in like 2 weeks, I got people you calling me like, hey, what's going on here? So like, yeah, it can, that kind of anxiety can definitely be a thing, and these events can kind of help alleviate that for stores, especially because, you know, there's still, as crazy it is to us, Sin, because we're so in the game.
We're entrenched in it.
Yeah, we're just solely indoctrinated into the game. There are still like stores that are hesitant. So, you know, these learn to play things. So if anybody, you know, has the ability to kind of get that going at their store, I recommend it. I would like to do it at my store as well. So, but that's awesome. I kind of like these, like kind of these, I don't know, if like guerrilla events, like kind of like, you know, like pop-up events are really cool. And speaking of, you did like a blitz challenge at the Pittsburgh Brawl. So actually just explain it. Tell us what that was.
My God. Oh, wow. You're going to make me relive. You're going to make me relive that. So about like 2 or 3 weeks before the brawl happened, John, the gentleman that runs all of the Flesh and Blood stuff for Green Tree Sports Cards, one of the co-owners, all that fun stuff, approached me because, you know, I'm sponsored by Green Tree Sports Cards. And he's like, hey, you know, I know you were planning on just kind of hanging out at the brawl. You weren't really planning on playing. You were planning on maybe like working our booth and kind of hanging out with people. And he was like, why don't we do a kind of like blitz event sort of thing where, you know, you get to sit down with people and people could come up, challenge you to a game of blitz. And we had the Pittsburgh Brawl playmat that we had specifically commissioned for the event. There was like a sketch variant, like an artist comic book sketch variant of it that we only made 25 of, and 5 of them went to me for this event. And it was essentially, you know, play blitz against Sin. If you win, you get to if you win, you get 2 packs. But then I'm gonna basically ask you to gamble on it, and you got to roll the dice, call the number that gets rolled. If you do correctly, you get one of the play mats. So it was just kind of like double or nothing sort of like challenge. And, oh man. So I did that on Saturday of the brawl. I went in with my maybe famous, slightly infamous, Royal Briar list. I do actually have a video on that folks can go check out, but it's been updated since Outsiders release, you know, like Give and Take and other cards like that. But at the end of the day, we started losing count of how many blitz games that I played that entire day to the point of, I think there was one period of time, it was around lunchtime, where I was trying to basically just go grab a sandwich or something. And there was just a line of people wanting this playmat. And I'm like, you know what? Like, I'm not going to tell people, hey, come back later. I have issues saying no. So like, I was like, yeah, you know what? Let's do it. So at that point in time, I think I played at least like 15 blitz games back to back within that like 2 to 3 hour period. And over the course of the entire day, I may have broken the record for the amount of blitz games played in a single sitting. We counted up, like John was sitting across the room from me, and he saw on the other side of the room, just like I was starting to like lose my mind.
Yeah.
And I think by the end of it, I'd played at least like 50 to 60 games of blitz in one single day. And there were like just reaping people.
That's my nightmare. Just so you know, I just one game of blitz.
Bro, I started just losing my grip on my sanity. Like I ran up to John and he asked me, he was like, so how's it going over there? And I was like, pitch Earth or search channel out. And I just like rattled off an entire Briar line off the top of my head because I had just been doing it over and over and over again the entire day. But it was a lot of fun. Like I know I make it sound like this is my own personal hell or something like that. But no, it was a really good time. It was a really, really good time. I got to meet a lot of folks. I played against Aiden from Three Floating. I got to meet him for the first time. Great crew over there, by the way. They're pushing out some great stuff. I got to meet who else sat down at my table? But just a bunch of people just sat down at the table and like that whole day was a blur because I feel like I rolled in there at like 6 a.m. to help set up and I, didn't leave till it was speakeasy time. And I, at that point, like I had to go home, feed my cats and then rush back down to the city to to the speakeasy. But yeah, man, no, it was a really great time. I did it cause I like meeting people. I like hanging with people and I like the game. And it's really, really nice to get to, try to basically challenge someone like, yeah, you know what, you should beat me because I want to give you things. Yeah. I like doing that kind of stuff.
I mean, it sounds like a labor of love, right? It's like to play that many games, you have to like love the game, right? That's
yes.
like you just have to. Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts. And the fact that you still play the game after, right? So, like, I do remember seeing you at one point. I think it was when you went to go try to get a sandwich. I was like, hey, how's it going? And you're like, I don't know.
Yeah, I was like slurring my words, like, I don't know, I'm out of here.
I was like,
I'm trying to sneak out. I'm trying to sneak out of here as fast as I can before anybody stops me.
Yeah, I was like, all right, see you later, Sin. Good luck. Man. But no, it's awesome. Did you encounter any really cool blitz decks?
So I don't play against a whole lot of Dromai in Blitz, honestly. So there was one person came up, was like playing Dromai, and when you think Blitz Dromai, you think that like the dragon plan is a little harder, just because you have to kind of set up a board state in a format where you're maybe only getting like 2 to 3 turns to do things. And I had a pretty weird stumble with like Briar. Like Briar just was not drawing me anything in my deck that I specifically built to make sure I draw everything that I need to draw. I think she ended the game. Like she ended the game with like, it ended up being like Kyloria. And I'm like, okay, there's no way there's anything worse than this coming at me. And then it's like, I was like, okay, yeah, sure. And I was at like 2 life and they were like, all right, Miraging Metamorph. And I was like, oh, okay. So it just tacked another 7 on it, and there's like a 15 damage Dromai turn.
Oh my god!
And I'm like, you know what? Like, yeah, you got me. And then that same person kept getting me in the back of the line to try and win the playmat over and over again. So I played against that play like 4 or 5 times throughout the day. But she's a local. She's really nice. It was just really funny. Because I don't typically see Dromai played in Blitz, and I guess when it happens, it happens. But yeah, man, no. So I saw that, you typically get like, when it comes to Blitz, I feel like a lot more folks are more inclined to run less meta things and more fun things. Just like, we got a bunch of our guys that are on Riptide. I know that's your boy. Your boy. And a bunch of our guys on Riptide. We got a bunch of our guys on Yoji. Like just fun things. Like I was running like a weird Flock of the Featherwalkers Arachne Huntsman build like way back, and it was really interesting. But aside from that, nothing super weird.
Well, what about our producer Greg? Didn't he run into you?
Greg ran into me at the Super Armory on Sunday.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
It was so Sunday they did a Super Armory.
Was it Blitz? It was Blitz?
It was Blitz. It was a Blitz Super Armory. And I didn't know that was happening actually. So I roll in and I hear on the announcement like, signups for the Super Armory are about to close. And I'm like, I walked over to the judge table and I'm like, what format is that? It was like, and he was like Blitz. And I'm like, well, it's really good that I had a lot of practice playing Blitz yesterday. So it was like round 2, and I get paired into Greg. Greg's on Riptide. He's on like the super defensive, like D-react Riptide.
Nourishing and stuff like
the
that.
Nourishing and all that. Yeah. And I'm playing, you know, just Briar. And there was a moment where I thought he had me on the ropes until I set up a channel mount and then Arsenal passed. Then I played like Nimblism into Force of Nature.
Yeah.
But I then followed that up with an Exude Confidence.
Oh no.
For like 10. And Greg just looked at his cards and looked up at me. And I'm just like on the floor, like I'm on the table just laughing, knowing that I hit him on a turn where all he has in his hand are defense reactions. And he couldn't play them. So I was like, Exude, hit, draw cards, snatch, crack Snapdragons, draw 2 cards. And I ended the game like instantly.
Wow.
So for anybody out there trying to figure out how to beat Riptide and Blitz, just play Exude Confidence.
I mean, that card is
That's basically it. Like, that is basically it. Like, you want to know how to take down Guardians? Like Yoji, you're having problems with Yoji, you're having problems with Riptide, Exude Confidence. Do not sleep on that card. All I'm going to say.
Okay, Greg, edit that part out. I don't want people to know. No, I'm kidding. No, leave it in, I guess.
I'm out here sharing my secrets, yeah.
I'll leave it up to you, Greg. But no, that's awesome. You know, to be honest, that Nourishing Riptide list is so cool. And it actually kind of renewed my faith in Blitz a little bit. And also Oldham and Icelander leaving. Renewed my faith a bit as well. But
I'm a Briar player, say less. Like,
yeah.
It hurts me bad.
Now, content, you know, you're what I would call a prolific YouTuber. Prolific. Any big content plans for you know, like Dusk Till Dawn and just going forward?
Well, we are getting a new Runeblade, so we are obviously going to be talking about that a lot on the channel. Once we have more of the spoilers set up, I've already got my my testing buddies ready to go. I do plan on putting out lists. I do plan on putting out some early thoughts on like spoiler cards, stuff like that. I'm really trying to start doing maybe some like interviews, like side interviews, talking about like other people in the community, like their favorite hero, how they're managing it. I'm more focusing on some of the underdogs, like, you know, say like Arachne or, you know, even Riptide. I know, calling him an underdog, don't shoot, but
he is.
But realistically speaking, like I love the underdog decks. I love the Dark Horse decks. I love anything that just kind of spins a wheel on the meta.
Yeah.
Something that just is so unexpected and things that you just wouldn't have ever thought of doing. And I really like to try and get into the head of the people that come up with those things, because I too like to do that sort of thing. So helps me understand myself as like a player and deck building, and helps kind of like show other how other folks operate on that same axis of the game. But other than that, content wise, I've been thinking very heavily about getting back into streaming some stuff.
Sweet.
So I think that might be on the horizon. I just got to get some things put together. I'm working currently on merch. So merch is coming for the Sinster. I did reveal back after, it was literally the day we got home from Pro Tour Baltimore. I did a full rebrand with my new logo, my new everything. And, you know, we're going to be utilizing that for merch. So keep an eye out on that. If anybody's interested in purchasing merchandise, that's coming. Anything Green Tree does that wants to sponsor a video for, like, you know, John essentially hires me out to do that stuff. So like, I'm always down. I'm always doing that kind of thing. And, fun little events pop up from time to time that give me an opportunity to really make some good content with people. But as of right now, like I said, most of it's heads down. I'm just working on stuff that I'm not entirely ready to talk about yet, because they're just like skeletons right now. But we've got some ideas.
You know, you've been doing a lot, right? You know, you have a lot of life stuff and all that, and I understand that side of things, right? Like kind of hunkering down and figuring out the auxiliary stuff, because this stuff's easy, right? Once we start doing it, because like we're having fun. Other stuff isn't so easy because it's not as fun. So, you know,
For sure.
that's awesome. And I do want to say the new logo looks really very metal, very, you know, badass. I like it.
Yep.
I like it. So I'm excited, man. I'm always paying attention to what you do, and I hope the buds out there do as well. Now we did the fresh faves last time you were on, but I'm sure there's updates here. So,
Yeah.
you know,
Lots have changed.
yeah, lots changed. I think we did not even have Arachne yet.
No, we didn't.
No. So, so this is gonna be current fresh phase for Sin.
Yeah.
We're gonna start. Who is your
Fire.
favorite
Just
hero?
fire.
Fire.
Who's my favorite hero? So my favorite hero currently is Viscerai. And I know I can hear, you know, Mr. Viz just having a meltdown in front of his computer screen right now. Like, just like, yeah, baby, let's go. But yeah, no, I first met Viscerai when we were in Indianapolis, and you know, he was sitting across the bar from me in the form of a body pillow, and we kind of like we hit it off from there, you know. Like he was just giving me the you know, like the big soulless dead eyes. Like I just fell for him immediately. But no, Viscerai has been very fun, kind of because I skipped over Viscerai for the longest time.
Mhm.
I came into the game during Monarch, which I feel like is where a good chunk of folks came in. I feel like a lot more joined during Tales, at least in the US, of course.
Yeah.
But I feel like I'd always kind of overlooked and undervalued Sarai as a hero, just because, you know, you think like, you know, attention span of a squirrel, like, oh, Shadow Runeblade just sounds better than regular Runeblade, or Elemental Runeblade sounds better than regular Runeblade. But turns out Viz has got the sauce and always has had the sauce. You know, seeing Zach Bunn's list kind of inspired me to maybe like, you know, start playing it a little bit. And I started playing it a little bit, realizing that, okay, I already know how this works because I've played Chain and Briar to a degree, that now I'm like, okay, well, I'll just take kind of some of the knowledge from there, put it into my own list. And I've been playing that list, and it's been fun. It's been fun, honestly. And I wanted to do that mainly because I feel like Vynnset kind of gets to that. Like, she kind of harkens back to what made original Viscerai like unique, with the rune gates especially. So I kind of wanted to get like the whole numbers game behind. Wanted to kind of start getting a grip on that, and bettering my understanding of kind of like the value game that Viscerai plays, because who knows, it might transfer over to Vynnset.
It really, I mean, it might. You know, we're going to talk about what Vynnset does, but it's marking the return of Runechant, which might be a good episode title. Oh man,
we're back, baby.
Clip it, Greg. All right, what's your favorite weapon?
My favorite weapon is I can't wait to hear all the boos about this one. Rosetta Thorn, dude, come on. Ooh. It's Rosetta Thorn. It's Rosetta Thorn. There has never been such value on a single piece of cardboard. Maybe there has, but I'm just being dramatic about it. But I know it's a problem. Okay, before anybody does or says anything in the comments, I know it's a problem. I don't care that it's a problem.
You know, I
love it.
Some people just want to be degenerates, and I get it, right? Like, if I could have that on a brute card, like I would not complain about it. So
I said, y'all are just hating because it's not your favorite class. That's all it is.
Listen, I think Hexagore is better anyway, but
okay. Well,
we'll talk about that.
We'll take that one offline.
Yeah.
But I don't know, man. Like I look at Rosetta Thorn, I look at the other Runeblade weapons, and like Nebula Blade is probably the close second as in terms of like most playable, I would say. We just don't know enough about Vynnset's like card pool yet to really say anything about Flail. But the Flail's interesting. I'm curious to see if there's something that makes the Flail better, quote unquote. Which I'm sure there's some plan there.
Yeah. This is a quick note on the Flail. For those of you who don't know, the Flail.
Flail back. Yep.
Yeah, is a one-handed flail. It costs a life to attack for 1. And if it hits, you make a Runechant. And it is a Vynnset specialization, right? So only Vynnset can play it. It's a Shadow Runeblade. Now, just, you say like we don't know if it's going to be playable. This might be kind of like a hot take, but like if that card is not playable in Vynnset, that's a somewhat of a failure, right?
I agree. I would agree with that.
So I think we should be looking to forward to a deck where that's what you want to play. I have to assume, right? So
I'm looking at the one-handed. The fact that it's one-handed tells me there's something else that we're not seeing yet. That's like, oh, that's good. That makes a lot more sense.
Yeah,
And
it's probably a shield or something like that, some kind of offhand, or you can play two. There's some way to make that work. So we don't know. Now, what's your favorite equipment?
My favorite equipment, recently, because I've gone back to Chain and Blitz for a little bit, Carrion Husk, dude. Like,
great answer.
I mean, all it does is block for 6, but like it turns out being able to block for 6 in Blitz, especially, is kind of insane because you effectively start at 26 life. Like,
yeah.
Turns out it's good. Turns out blocking a big number is good, and that's really all I have to say about that piece of equipment.
Listen, you're preaching to the choir. I mean,
I know. I know who I'm talking to here, but it's one of those things.
Now, what's your favorite, run of the mill card, non-attack actions, attack actions, instance, things you put in your deck?
Currently, Overload. I really like Overload. I really like Overload because, you buff big number, and all of a sudden it's like 10 dominate, go again, have fun, bye. Just like bye.
So it's really good in Briar.
Yeah, it's a really good card in Briar. Can't typically find too many other applications for it. I tried messing with it a little bit in Arachne, believe it or not, doing generic crap with it. I've been trying to make like this weird disruptive aggro Arachne deck that like I've had some decent success with. I just don't think it's the time yet, obviously, with the card pool for Arachne specifically being so small. I feel like there is a future where that deck becomes very scary. But it's probably a long ways off if I'd have to guess. But
yeah, I mean, I've played around with the card in Riptide with like Scout the Periphery and Premeditate to load it in there and just fire it off and get the go again. But it's kind of counterintuitive to like what you want your generic go against to do in the deck. Sure. So it's a little bit hard. Like there's definitely a world where it works, maybe even as a one of to finish out the game or something like that. But sweet. So that was the fresh faves renewed with Sin. Now we're gonna get to Vynnset. We've been teasing Vynnset for a little bit. So for those who don't know, Vynnset's the new Shadow Runeblade hero. We saw the young version at the Calling Singapore over the weekend. It is a 4 intellect, 20 health. Standard stuff there, and has 2 abilities. First one, at the start of your turn, banish a card from your hand. If you do, create a Runechant token. Like I said, return to Runechant. And then the second ability is whenever you play a shadow non-attack action card, you may pay 1 life. If you do, the next Runechant effect that would deal damage this turn can't be prevented. So what does that mean? So ward prevents damage. So that would turn off the ward for the Runechant. Arcane Barrier is prevention, correct? And that would turn off that first Runechant. So it's like an unblockable Runechant, which is already somewhat unblockable sometimes. So pretty awesome. Now, before we actually get to our thoughts, we talked, you big Briar player, and like you've been messing around with Chain, but like, did you play a lot of Chain in the past?
So I played Chain when I first started playing Flesh and Blood. Whenever I got into Flesh and Blood, I bought like 2 boxes of Monarch and just kind of threw a deck together to kind of play with like buds at our local game shop before we started actually kind of getting into the game. And Chain was the first hero that I had built a deck for. It was both Chain and Azalea. I had an Azalea kind of deck, but we don't talk about Azalea back in the Monarch era. But Chain was the first hero that I really dug my like claws into, so to speak, and went to town with. And then around that time, I wasn't really prepared to start buying into like legendaries yet or anything major like that. So I never really bought like Carrion Husk or anything like that. I had Tunic, which was like fine because I had pulled it from a box, and then I didn't have Creepers didn't exist yet. So like Chain was great. He did feel, he felt really good. He was really, really good in that era. But then Tales of Aria came around, and then I hopped right into Briar, like because we went Shadow Runeblade, which I'm still like, there's part of me that still tries to wrap my head around that whole like how did that happen?
Yeah.
But realistically speaking, like Chain is one of the first years I ever played. I played a lot of him in limited, because back then when most of us didn't have decks, we would just buy boxes of Monarch and draft Monarch. Not a lot of people, like as we see with this pre-release weekend they're doing, not a lot of people in the US got a chance to really draft or do Sealed of Monarch. And that's a little bit different for us because like we did a lot of it kitchen table. So I played a lot of Chain in those limited formats. I played a good chunk of Prism too, but Chain's just my thing. Like I'm a metal guy,
Yeah.
I'm a big metalhead guy. Like I'm a bearded metalhead guy. You're gonna put a guy in front of me that's got a literal chain for an arm and like rips open wormholes and shit. Like no, yeah, we're doing it. Like that's the hero that I'm playing. Like Viscera is cool and all, but he's a little too brooding for me. But Chain, he's like an angry boy. I like that.
Yeah, he's got angst. Viscera's a little emo, whatever.
Well, he's more
wrong with it.
Sad. He's like groaning and all sad, but like Chain like, no, yeah, we're gonna like rip open like holes to dimensions and like let demons spill through. Do you guys want to come with us? Like maybe afterwards we're gonna get trashed in the Solanian library. Like, and then he hops on his Harley and like skirts off into the sunset.
Oh my god. Sin, if I can hear Solanian library in your Pittsburgh accent for the rest of my life, I'd be happy now.
sounds like Salami Library.
Yeah, like oh my Kabasi library. So anyway, so you played the Chain. You're familiar with like how Chain felt and all that. Now, looking at Vynnset, it's pretty easy to say this is not the same. This is a different vibe. So what are your initial thoughts on Vynnset out of the gates? Out of the rune gates, sorry.
So a couple initial thoughts. First of all, the like triggered condition that you have to banish a card from your hand, not from the top of the deck, from your hand, in order to always have a Runechant at the start of each turn that you play. It kind of feels on the surface like a little bit of a nerf to the class, so to speak. And I say that loosely just because it's hard to make absolutes of determinations with not having seen the whole card pool yet. But I'm already like looking at some shadow cards and seeing like there could be value in just being able to choose what you're banishing to play out.
Oh yeah.
And we'll get into all that, of course, but when it comes to that ability, that's definitely a thing. And then her second ability is what really, really has my wheels turning. Because Unpreventable Arcane, it's pretty big. Like, Chain, like all of the rune blades have their kind of outs to a game. Like Chain is kind of like a ride or die, right? Like you're either going to, get to a point in the game where you banish such a perfect pitch stack that you are just able to wipe your opponent out of the game, like in a complete blowout. That's really the goal. So you're just doing this like downward ascension to hit the gas.
Yeah.
But Viscera has his just like throwing Runechants. He's kind of like almost more of like a mid-range to aggro kind of vibe, right?
Yeah, Viscera is pretty mid. Yeah.
And Briar's got, Briar kind of has this thing going on where for her a lot of the times it's channel mount heroic or nothing.
Yeah.
You're either gonna fizzle out or you're gonna bang out your channel mount heroic force of nature and just wipe the game. Vynnset feels like she's built to essentially play a slower game, but also be able to apply pressure when she needs to. It's reading to me like that Unpreventable Arcane tells me that you are probably going to get the most value out of Vynnset by banishing and you really leaning on our. She almost feels like a weird, like if I had to say that she kind of seems like something that isn't a runeblade, she almost reads like a shadow wizard to me in a way, you know. And I know there's that whole meme like shadow wizard money gang, you know, we're out here casting spells, but you know, like she like you look at her young art, and even in that she looks like she doesn't look like the kind of hero to come out with like a giant sword and a suit of armor swinging on the battlefield like maybe like Briar or Chain or Viscerai were, you know. She is like this stationary, almost like spellcaster kind of thing. She's got this whole like ritualistic vibe going on to her, and you know, I'm here for it. Like I feel like all of those things are indications of how she's going to be built and how she's going to play. She's going to maybe want to defend up and bank Runechants and play cards that really just let her dig through her deck to find the key pieces she needs to kind of close games out, you know? You can use her ability, that secondary ability can be used as many times as shadow action. So, you know, you could theoretically play a shadow action, lose 1 life, make something unpreventable, swing it, you know, play another shadow action, pitch the Grasp of the Arknight, make another unpreventable. Yeah. And, you know, there's so many ways you go about it without seeing the rest of the rest of the kit. It's a little bit difficult, but I'm already thinking of certain cards that I feel like maybe some folks aren't taking a look at yet, and I'm willing to talk to you about them at some point here. I am willing to talk to you about them.
Well, yeah, I mean, so Vynnset, and I think you actually hit a nice little point there about like Chain, how powerful Chain was, and my initial thoughts here, right, are like I look at this hero and I, you know, I hate to rain on the runeblade parade. Don't expect this hero to be busted like we've seen other runeblades. That's no way me saying it's not going to be good. I think Vynnset's going to probably really fun, really cool, and, you know, competitive. Absolutely. The ability to banish whatever you want from your hand is way stronger in a shadow class than you even remotely think, because you have multiple options here, right? I think of Seeds of Agony, right? I believe is unsuspended now because Chain is gone. I wonder how long Seeds of Agony will hang around. Although it's not in a situation with Chain, like where it was with Chain, when you could do like 10 Seeds of Agonies in a turn, right? You're probably only, unless you're like banking Seeds of Agonies, then you're taking Blood Debt. You don't want to do that. So I look at, and I agree, I think it's probably going to be somewhat of a slower class. First time we've seen a Runeblade kind of really try to be slow outside of some like weird Briar builds and stuff like that. And it's going to be very cool to see where it goes. Now, what existing Shadow and Shadow Runeblade cards have you been looking at that seem appealing?
So when Vynnset was first revealed at Pro Tour Baltimore, just the art, just the art with like the wall of text explaining like who Vynnset is in the story and what she does in the story. Her whole thing with the rune gates is that she apparently has the ability to open up like the dimensional gateway, which in the story is like where all of these like demons and grotesque beings and stuff are pouring out onto Wraith. Like she has the ability to open up these portals, these rifts to kind of the other side. And I took that as a hint from LSS. Because once we saw Runegate on Phantom Banshee, my first thought was, okay, so you need to have the card in your banish zone and able to Runegate it. You need to be able to have the Runechant, which I don't think is going to be a problem with her. I think there's going to be, you know, multiple ways we will eventually be able to solve that.
Yeah.
But I started looking at the cards from Monarch, like Dimensional Gateway, which is a, you know, I actually have it pulled up here because I want to talk about this one a little bit. You know, for the red, it costs 1, lets you opt 3, and then you reveal the top card of your deck. If it's a Runeblade card, it deals 1 arcane damage. which is already ticking. It's already ticking one of the boxes of potentially wanting to deal more arcane damage with Vynnset.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's a shadow card, you can banish it. So I'm like, okay, so it's also a shadow runeblade action. So you can pay to Vynnset's ability for it and throw, the unpreventable arcane on whatever the next attack is. And guess what? That next attack's probably going to be a rune gated attack, because with that op 3, you are able to dig 3 cards into your deck to find a rune gate card to use.
Yeah.
And I think that is actually very valuable. Like, if Runeblade has this intrinsic problem where, you might get a dead hand where you just you can't do anything with it. But if you have Dimensional Gateway and one resource, whether that be maybe even off Tunic, it might be possible she doesn't even want Carrion Husk, which is something that we got to consider too. If it's off Tunic, you get Dimensional Gateway, grab like Phantom Banshee or whatever one of the other Rune Gate cards is, reveal it, deal 1 arcane damage, banish it, then play it out. And you're getting value off of it. You're getting really good value off. And so that's a card I'm looking at. Another card that I'm looking at is Dimensional Crossroads. I know a lot of people have some opinions on this card from Monarch. That it's, this isn't that great of a card. This isn't all that great. However, there might be some fringe cases where this card shows up. You're looking at a 2 cost. It's a yellow. Go again. Whenever you play an attack action card or non-attack action card from Banish Zone, if you haven't played another card of that type this turn, deal 1 arcane damage to target hero. So if you play a non-attack and attack action, this aura that's sitting there will just deal 2 arcane, right?
Yeah.
Now, what happens when you get 3 of them out and you're playing a longer game? You got 3 of them on board, and through that longer game, you're now playing non-attack action, dealing 3 arcane, and then you're playing an attack action that might also deal arcane itself on top of another 3 arcane.
It can get out of control. It feels a lot like Burn Them All in a way, right?
Yep.
But the cost there is if you take damage on your turn, right? So
which is a little interesting. So like that's why I'm like that might be a little case for Vynnset, and I'm not entirely sure how that would work, but I'm eyeing it up just in case we get something weird in Dusk Till Dawn that makes it make sense, so to speak.
Yeah, and the tough thing with Vynnset here is, unlike Chain, also it only has that we know of one reliable opportunity to get something in the Banish Zone on every turn. And like it happens once, and you can only play like if things don't have go again from your Banish Zone, you can only play one of them, or and if you leave any in, you're going to take blood debt. So it's interesting. Like I think it's going to be like the dimensional, was it Crossroads is the yellow?
It was, Crossroads is the 2 cost. Yeah.
Yeah.
The 2 cost.
It's very cool. I think it would probably be so hard to build around it, like based on what we know now. But obviously that can all change, because when you think about all the things that Chain would play from Banish Zone, right? Bounding Demagon, Riftbind, Ghostly Visit, they are a little bit, maybe not like super below rate, but they're a little bit below rate just because you're getting them for like their extra cards, right? They had to balance them to the point, right? Like a 1-for-4 Ghostly Visit is just okay, right? But when you're playing, when it's not in your hand, you get to play it from your Banish Zone. You're like, this is the best card I've ever played in my life.
Yeah.
But so but like, so it's interesting to see, and like the Rune Gate stuff, like the Phantom Banshee, which is it costs 3 for 7. 3 for 7.
3 for 7, Rune Gate 3.
Yeah,
and blocks 3 as well.
Blocks 3. So if you have 3 Runechants, you can play it from Banish for free, right?
Right.
And I mean, that's like 10, right? We will see if that is a pretty solid rate coming from Banish Zone. So
sure. Yeah.
I have to imagine that's what Vynnset wants to do, is Rune Gate
absolutely.
Stuff. Yeah.
Absolutely. That's going to be her whole shtick, so to speak. I'm predicting we're probably going to see a Rune Gate attack specifically that has go again on it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to think probably a thing. It won't be crazy. It's probably going to be like Rune Gate. It might be like a 1 cost for 3 go again or something like that. And not be anything more. But like when you look at cards like Howl from Beyond and like Shadow Puppetry, that would make that a 4. You're hitting the break points that Runeblades kind of want to hit. But you're kind of balancing it in the sense of you now have to commit another card to it. But there's all that. Then obviously the big elephant in the room is Tome of Torment. I know I've seen people talking about that one. And I started thinking about that today, and I was like, you know what? That makes a lot of sense. You banish it at the beginning of the turn, it replaces itself. Eventually, at some point throughout the turn, you can use creepers on it to just pump it out of the banish zone on top of something, draw a card, it replaces itself, and you go forth. I could see that being easy. It's a free Runechant on a stick.
Yeah. The only downside is doesn't block. No block, but
which is a bit painful. So I'm not sure about it yet, but
I would say the biggest card, and you mentioned Shadow Puppetry. I think Shadow Puppetry is a great card regardless. So it's just gonna play very well in this deck, assuming that's what you want to do.
Right.
Shadow of Ursur is a card that is I'm really interested in. Now,
sure,
that was an all-star in Chain, but it also seems like it will be an all-star in Vynnset. So I don't have it up in front of me, but my memory says it costs 0. You can banish a card from hand. If it's a shadow card, it gets go again. So you're filling your banish zone for some other nonsense. And on top of whatever you did with Vynnset to put stuff in. So do you foresee Shadow of Ursur being a major player here?
My only worry with that, and I do have some worries with that, is that when you look at the numbers, and I'm talking like your hand, like the hand numbers, your arsenal, like what card, say you have a card in arsenal, say you got your 4 cards, and say you just didn't block at all, right? Like you just didn't block anything. You're playing out, you are essentially starting every turn with Vynnset kind of on a 3-card hand. Not really though, unless you're forced to banish something that doesn't have blood debt and can't be played out. So you got to really watch that kind of thing. And excuse me, if you're banishing like a card to make the Runechant, and you want to have you need those Runechants to Runegate, right? But the Runegate card has to be in banish zone.
Yeah.
If you play out Shadow of Ursur, it's going to burn through those Runechants.
Yeah.
And then you have to now figure out how you're going to Runegate from the banish zone. So I feel like it's a good thought. It's a good idea. Once again, it might be another case if we just haven't seen cards yet. Yeah. And I kind of hate throwing that out there, but it is true. Haven't seen all the cards yet from this set, but Shadow of Ursur definitely feels like one of those cards where, Chain got more use out of it because he was able to play so much stuff from Banish Zone for nothing.
Yeah.
Whereas Vynnset seems like she might be a little more resource intensive when things don't quite go her way. And that could be something that we need to consider. And I'm not saying it's bad. I mean, it's a blue block 3. It's a blue block 3. It's not bad. Like that's not bad at all. But I'm not sure if it's going to be something that would be like strategy reliant.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So, I mean, I think we can kind of theorize here that rune gating is probably where we want to go. Now we've only seen the Banshee, right? Yep. We're obviously they have to be printing other rune gate stuff.
Yeah.
So, that all being said, Briar still hasn't hit Living Legend. We still have Viscerai. Chain is out, right?
Yep.
And we're gonna have Vynnset. I need to ask you, will Vynnset be the premier Runeblade, or are we still looking back at the OGs?
Well, we're not looking at the OG. If we look at Briar, we're probably about 5 minutes in the grand scheme of things. Yeah. I think before any strategies even set in with Vynnset, she's out. She's gonna be out. I'm so convinced at this point that Briar will be gone by that point that when I'm looking at Vynnset and I look at possible strategies, I'm not even looking at Rosetta Thorn because I'm not going to anticipate having. Yeah. So that's, I mean, I know I'm kind of talking out of my ass a little bit there, but I feel like it's probably a safe assumption.
Well, we only have one Battle Harden, right?
We only got one Battle Harden. Yeah, and I mean, something happens during the Dusk Till Dawn era and she's able to kind of punch through, then that does it. We're still stuck with Rosetta for a little while, but I don't want to get too comfy with Rosetta on Vynnset. I feel like that's not a safe play from a competitive standpoint. As for Viserai, I think Viserai will always kind of be the tried and true, so to speak.
The standard.
He'll be the standard. The tried and true. He's the guy that just kind of comes in, gets the job done. He doesn't do it insanely well. He doesn't do it terribly either. He just kind of gets the job done. He goes home, hangs out with his little Sutcliffe head. If he had wife and kids, it'd probably be what he did. But no, he just hangs out with all the villains in the monastery. Clocks it. He shows up to work. He goes home. He does his job. Easy enough.
Yeah.
He's a very simple fellow.
It's a true-blooded Raytheon, right?
Yeah.
Just clocks in, clocks out.
Yeah, clocks in, clocks out, does his thing. Sometimes he takes it, and if he doesn't, he's kind of like, you know what, whatever, man. Like, no biggie.
Yeah.
As for Premier Runeblade, I think we're going to be seeing a lot of Vynnset. I think one, a lot of folks, at least like in the Runeblade side of the community, are just happy to have a new Runeblade.
Mm-hmm.
I know we have had so many of them. I get that part, but I think we're just happy to see kind of Chain's replacement. I say that as we've discussed with like loose quotes, because like she's not Chain. It's very clear that she's not Chain. I think once the strategies start to form, the deck list gets built. People are kind of playing in a world without Oldhim for a while.
Yeah.
It's very possible we see her become a new fan favorite. I honestly think that's a possibility. Bold claim, I know, but like the moment I saw that art, the moment I saw the young art at Pro Tour, man, my jaw dropped. I was like, this hero is like the hero I'm going to be playing for a long time.
Oh, 100%. I mean, checks all the boxes. Runeblade looks cool. The flavor's awesome. We're going to get some really sweet lore. It's really going to be a home run, I think, regardless of how good she is. And
oh, absolutely.
And it's pretty awesome. But I think that does lead us into our first listener question. And if we had quite a few for you in the Buds.
Yeah.
You can submit listener questions in the Buds Discord for anybody who wants to join. It's a great way to kind of get involved with the podcast. First one comes from the Empress of Valkor herself, Mara, who asks, do you have any worries that Briar not hitting LL? With Briar not hitting LL, Rosetta Thorn is going to stifle deck building for Vynnset. Clearly, her deck looks like it's going to be built around Runechants and the Runegate mechanic, like we said, with her flail supplementing that. But if Rosetta Thorn is still legal, do you worry her deck will just ignore her unique mechanics and just play Thorn and generic chain cards instead? Now, I alluded to it earlier. I think if that ends up being the case, we're probably looking at somewhat of a design failure, which I think comes from just Rosetta Thorn, really. Not really the design of Vynnset and the flail. But I do feel like we're not going to see this happen. It just does not feel like you said, you're playing with a 3-card hand mostly.
Yep.
In this, it's hard to make Rosetta work if you're not like really putting it all out there,
Sure.
So I'm going to say I'm not too worried about it. There is part of me that's worried about it, but what about you?
So my concern, and I'm approaching it from a competitive standpoint, which, I know Mara also approaches things from a very competitive standpoint as well. Tommy, I know you do too. I feel like the biggest mistake, and it might benefit players short term to get comfy and cozy with having Rosetta and Vynnset. But when that day comes that Briar finally goes, you're going to essentially have to learn a whole new deck, a whole new build, because Rosetta versus the flail plan, and this is just a guesstimation of, what's going to come in the set. Rosetta versus the flail plan, they're going to be two different decks. I would predict that they would be two different decks because, Vynnset appears to at least have some kind of like thing going on with the life loss mechanic and like using life as a resource. I would not be surprised to see some of her most powerful cards come at a life cost. and play into a strategy that maybe is reliant on whatever offhand she gets, or whatever. Maybe we get a new piece of shadow equipment or something that says, like, if you've lost life on this turn, then insert this happens,
Yeah.
Like, I feel like that is something we could legitimately see on maybe even other RuneGate cards. And if you're so used to and so accustomed to building Vynnset as this like hyper aggro, always doing, just the non-attack attack swing Rosetta kind of deal, you're not really, I feel like as a competitive player, you're not really getting the full experience of what the hero can be.
Yeah.
You're not really understanding fully what the deck can do. And like you said earlier, like it is kind of a design failure that, like, Runeblade in general has been kind of held back in terms of deck building and deck construction because of the existence of Rosetta Thorn.
Yeah.
I have this conversation with folks in our local Discord all the time about Rosetta. I'm one of the few Runeblade players we have here in like the Pittsburgh city, like the Pittsburgh scene. And, like, I love Rosetta Thorn. I love the weapon. I think it's a fantastic weapon. We all know it's good, but it undeniably has stifled the creativity that goes into building rune blades in such a way because of how good it is.
Yeah.
So I feel like worried. I'm worried that I might start seeing Vynnset builds with Rosetta everywhere when I'm not really focusing on that. Because I'm kind of in that kind of mental state for the long game.
Yeah.
I feel like folks will use it. They might win with it. Who knows? It might be insanely busted, and it's going to suck for a little while until Briar dips out and rides off into the sunset. But once that happens, I'm hoping to at least be prepared to, pivot to the flail plan, pivot to, what her true potential is. And hopefully that can kind of end up rolling out that way. But all in all, I'm not scared per se. A little annoyed, maybe. I love Briar to death. Just kind of wanted Rosetta to be gone and kind of get a fresh slate, Like, I mean, I love Briar to death, but I think I do too. Also, think it is time for her to ride off into the sunset and make room for the new gal in town.
Yeah, and I saying that it would be a design failure, right?
Sure.
I don't think that it's going to be, actually.
No.
I think looking at that flail, it's got to be a part of the plan.
It's telling a piece of a bigger picture we don't understand yet.
Yeah, exactly.
That's all it is.
So not too worried is I think where we both kind of land. And certainly there will be builds with Rosetta Thorn. There's builds with freaking the Scythe in like Briar. So like, who cares, but we'll see how it goes. Now, next one comes from Tommy's Top Picks. Shout out Tommy, who asks, who is the most Yinzer hero in Wraith and why?
It's Riptide, dude. It's Riptide. That's not even a question. I mean, it is a question, but no, it's Riptide. Why is it Riptide? Have you seen Pittsburgh's infrastructure? I actually made a series of traps as like a joke meme. It's over on my YouTube channel of certain incidents that have occurred over the Pittsburgh area for the past 5 years, being like, hey, Riptide showed up. Like one time we had a bus fall through like just a street downtown. Like a bus just fell right into it. And I was like, that's just Riptide, and that's just collapsing traps. So, we've had bridges collapse, like, so I feel like if there's any hero that personifies what it means to be a Pittsburgher, it's Riptide, baby. Cause we got the crumbling infrastructure. We got the, we got the water. You can go fishing,
for sure.
And like at the end of the day, it's just kind of like, yeah, man, we're in Pittsburgh. We abbreviate it Pitt. We're in the pits. It's Riptide.
Boom.
It's boom. Riptide. Boom.
Great answer. Now, I don't know if this will be the same answer, but Anna Shreve asked, which hero would most likely consider Icy Light their favorite beer?
Wow.
Which is a popular beer out that way.
Yeah, Iron City beer.
Yep.
Iron City beer. I'm gonna go with Bravo. I think
Sure.
Bravo looks like the kind of dude that would just like, go downtown and crack open a nice cold icy light at a local bar. That bar might have all of these like intricate options, might have some of the best craft beer there is, but like he's gonna sit down, he's gonna crack an icy light, and he's just gonna enjoy like a nice day, looking out over the water and all that fun stuff. Bravo is 100% an icy light drink. I think that's undeniable.
Well, he's not drinking much else if with that 6-pack and those packs.
Yeah.
So
yeah, gotta be light beer. It's gotta be light beer, baby.
We got a question from GD Batman, who asks, if each runeblade hero was a metal band, which one would they be and why? Just pick a few. There's a lot. There's a lot of heroes.
So I love this Viscerai, and I'm not going to go into like a major elaboration here, but Viscerai absolutely listens to Megadeth. He listens to Megadeth. I don't think that's a question. He's a very brooding guy, but he's a little old. He likes his old school thrash. He likes his he likes throw on. Maybe he throws on some Pantera every time and time again when he's like having a bad night, just kind of a break stuff kind of area of things. And then you get into Chain, and he is giving like 1990s like goth rock club vibes. He's probably listening to like Bauhaus and like Rammstein. Yeah.
Rammstein?
He's like,
I don't know.
Rammstein. He's like listening to like German goth metal and like doing all this like weird shit. And sometimes he just like sits around and listens to like EDM. I feel like he's a big rave guy, Briar, on the other hand, I'm gonna finish this one up easy. She doesn't listen to metal. She listens to emo music. Her favorite band is Sunny Day Real Estate. And she gets down to a lot of the early 2000s like emo and screamo stuff. And she's just got that like that vibe to her. She loves a lot of like she also loves a lot of like 90s indie as well. Like she's not much of a metalhead, but when it really comes down to it, she can get the job done.
Yeah, and I'm gonna go ahead and say Vynnset listens to Nine Inch Nails almost exclusively.
Absolutely. She's got a Trent Reznor poster hanging up in the monastery.
Yeah. Oh my god. The next question comes from Capolo. Shout out Cap.
What's up, Cap?
If you were given a free trip and vacation in a country to play a calling in, what would your dream country be to go to?
I'm going to say it because they just announced it. Japan.
Yeah.
Like, realistically, man, like Battle Hardened Tokyo sounds so sick on paper. Like I would go, and I might not even like play in the event. I might just go to watch the event and hang out in Tokyo. Like, like you cannot have a major event like that in one of the coolest cities in the world and expect players to be hyper focused on playing the game. Like,
yeah.
Like it's like, no, I'm going to just explore Tokyo. Like, I'm sorry, guys, we're out. Like, but no, hands down, Japan, Tokyo.
It's very exciting that they're getting events too. I'm pretty stoked.
Happy for them. Happy for them.
Pat Shaw asked, nose ring? Are you getting it?
Eventually. I get paid in like 2 days, so next 48 hours, it might be a nice little thirst trap on Twitter. We'll see.
Yeah, well, it might already have happened because this comes up on Thursday.
I think. I mean, well, we'll see where it goes.
Who knows? Smithel asked, can you say one nice thing about Warriors in the game, and has your Briar ever won against Chris's Dory?
No. Next question.
Okay, sounds good.
No, I'm messing. I just had to do it to him. So yes, I have won against his Dory once out of the like 100 times we've ever played. I always get routed by him at the worst possible moment, and his Dorinthia is infuriating. Now I'm ready to go to the next question. Thanks, Chris.
And finally, Gary, aka Mr. Viz, asks, Viscerai is based. Explain?
No explanation needed.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair enough. And I'm sure he's going to really love that answer. So, hey, listen, Matt, Sin Matt, my friend, this was a blast. Thank you for coming on. Always having a blast with you. You're just so much fun. You're great energy. Can you please plug everything you'd like to plug? And thank you.
I'd like to plug in my wall outlet. So first off, I'd love to plug Green Tree Cards over on Twitter at GSCFAB. Great event host here in Pittsburgh. I'd like to plug my YouTube channel. We just hit 1,000 subscribers. We talk flesh and blood. We chat with people. We do giveaways, baby. We're all about the giveaways. We do giveaways all the time. Whenever a new set comes out, I usually do a box or two giveaway. Love doing that. So, youtube.com/sin on stream, ON stream. Working on getting that link changed, but you'll find me at SinFabTCG. You find me on Twitter at Sin on Stream, also SinFabTCG there. I love chatting with people. I love feedback. I love just hanging out with the community. And if you ever see me at an event, better come up, better say hi, because if not, I'm coming to say hi to you, and you're going to make it awkward. So just do it anyway. That's all I really have when it comes to plugging things. But absolutely big love to GSC Fab. Wanted to give John, my boy, a shout out, and the whole team over there. The GSC, the Smash with Green Tree team. If you see any of us at an event, feel free to come up to us, say hi. Everyone in our crew is really nice. We love the community. We do it for the community. And they're all super supportive of the content side of things that I do personally. And I'm grateful for that. So big shout outs to my team. Big loves. You guys rock. But yeah, that's all I got, Tommy.
All right, buddy. Well, I want to echo that sentiment about the Green Tree crew. They put on a great event in Pittsburgh. I had a blast over there, and I love seeing anybody in a Smash with Green Tree jersey. It's always a good time. They're always everywhere. Now you can continue to find me on Twitter at FreshBudsPod. Check out the Buds Discord. Check out the Patreon. It really helps. And YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe. We're getting so close to the 500. Gonna do that stupid cosplay. You're really gonna love it. I'm gonna love it too. And food. Sin. Always like to talk about food, as you know, at the end of the podcast and in real life.
Right.
What's some food you're enjoying these days?
Well, I can't say Hofbrauhaus because there's a whole inside joke about how I said Hofbrauhaus was my favorite place to eat in Pittsburgh last time. Yeah. And the guys just never stopped roasting me for it. So currently my obsession has been pizza logs. Like they're like, it's essentially like an egg roll, right? With sauce, like pizza sauce, like mozzarella cheese and pepperoni in it. Sounds amazing. You just do that. There's like a bar right down the street from me that makes them really nice. They're like, local joint, a locally owned place that every now and again, when it's like half price appetizer night, I'll pop down and grab a couple and just have a nice little brew with the pizza logs. And that's been my most recent food obsession. If you can find them anywhere, you can even find them in some grocery stores, like just to throw in the air fryer or whatever. And they're bomb. Throw some ranch on them. I'm telling you, it'll change your life.
Oh, no, don't throw any ranch on them, folks. Please.
Tommy, we're not going to get into this late in the show.
No, we're not. But that's because, no, it sounds like we don't have time for the Charmer segment. We'll get to it next week. Thank you, everybody. Please have a great week.